Imagine you're a small market WNBA owner who just got the email of a lifetime, and it says your league is getting $200 million a year in new media rights. You probably pop the champagne and start celebrating, but then you open the new CBA spreadsheet and your heart stops. Your mandatory team payroll just jumped from $1.5 million to $7 million overnight, and as you do the math, you realize you're actually losing more money than before. Most people heard about this $200 million deal and called it a massive win for everyone involved. The top sports executives saw the trap immediately, and they know that big numbers don't always mean big profits for the people writing the checks. Over the next 10 minutes, we are going to break down exactly who wins, who bleeds, and what this money waterfall actually looks like. We're even looking at one specific clause in the contract that makes this deal more dangerous, the smaller your market is, so stick around to see how this dream deal could turn into a nightmare. We have to start with the deal itself, because these numbers are genuinely wild compared to where the league used to be. The old WNBA media deal was only worth about $33 million a year, but this new agreement is part of the NBA's massive 11-year package with Disney, Amazon, and NBC. Now the WNBA is pulling in roughly $200 million every single year, which is a 6 times jump that makes it look like everyone is printing money. But here's the twist that complicates everything for the owners. The moment that $200 million hits the league accounts, 20% comes right off the top and goes straight to the players as a gross revenue share. This isn't a cut of the profit after expenses, because the owners don't get to subtract arena costs or marketing before the players take their piece. In the past, the revenue share was only around 9 or 10%, and it was never calculated on the gross amount. So that one single word changes the entire financial landscape. This is the part most people miss when they look at the headlines. At the team level, the salary cap is jumping from $1.5 million per team in 2025 to $7 million in 2026, and that 4 times increase in mandatory payroll happens in just 1 year. Minimum salaries are climbing from $66,000 to $300,000, while the average player will see their pay jump from $120,000 to $600,000. By the time the 7-year deal ends, the league expects to pay out over $1 billion in total player compensation. The real problem is that this cap applies to every single team equally, regardless of how much money they actually bring in locally. A team like Golden State has huge local revenue and can absorb a $7 million cap without blinking, but a team in a smaller market with fewer sponsors is stuck paying that same mandatory cost. While the waterfall looks clean on paper with 80% going to the league and owners, that money doesn't flow evenly to everyone. The cap hits every owner the same way, and for the smaller teams, that is a trap. Let's put 4 different owners side by side to see what this deal actually looks like from their perspective. We have to start with the Golden State Valkyries because Joe Lacob and Peter Guber, the guys who own the Warriors, bought into this expansion for a reported $50 million fee. Today, that same team is valued at over $500 million, making it the first women's sports franchise in history to hit a number that massive. But here's the thing, it isn't just about the new media deal. They have the Chase Center, they have the Warriors' massive sponsor pipeline, and they walked into the league with the kind of infrastructure most WNBA teams have spent 30 years trying to build. Their projected local revenue is sitting at $55 million or more. So when that $7 million salary cap hits, they won't even feel the pinch. For Laco and Guber, this media deal isn't a cost problem at all. It's a pure valuation multiplier where every single dollar of new media revenue makes their $500 million asset worth even more. Now look at Mark Davis over in Las Vegas. The Aces were already one of the very few WNBA teams turning a real profit before this deal even existed. Davis came into the league with NBA ownership experience and a strong local sports market. Plus, he already had the arena and sponsorship deals in place from the Raiders. He understood from day one that the business model only works if you control the revenue levers like tickets, sponsors, and arena deals. The new CBA doesn't trap him, because his local revenue base was already built to handle a cost jump like this, and that $200 million deal just adds more margin on top of what was already working. But this is where it gets interesting, so let's look at the Indiana Fever. On the surface, the Fever look like the biggest winners of the entire CBA. Caitlin Clark's rookie year, which we'll talk more about in a second, sent their valuations skyrocketing to roughly $335 million. Attendance surged, national TV ratings went through the roof, and sponsors started calling them for a change. But here's the twist: Indiana is still a mid-sized market. Local ticket revenue and sponsorship dollars have a ceiling that Golden State and Las Vegas simply don't have to worry about. Even with the valuation jump and the cultural moment, the Fever still feel the squeeze when 20% of every new media dollar goes straight to the players off the top. The asset looks great on paper, but the monthly cash flow math is still incredibly tight. Then you have teams like Atlanta and Washington. The Dream and the Mystics don't have an NBA arena tie-in, and they've historically dealt with thin local margins and sponsor bases that haven't scaled the way coastal markets have. These are the franchises where that $200 million league-wide check just doesn't trickle down enough to cover the new mandatory payroll floor. The cap doesn't care that your local market is half the size of Las Vegas, because it's $7 million full stop. These owners are sitting in a room doing math that just doesn't work, and their only real options are to eat the losses, find a buyer, or hope the league's rising tide lifts their boat fast enough before the cash runs dry. What this scorecard reveals is actually pretty counterintuitive. The bigger the media rights check gets, the more dangerous it becomes for owners who don't control massive local revenue. That is the trap in its purest form. The gross revenue share clause doesn't just take 20% of the new media dollars. It sets a precedent that the players are now partners in the league's total commercial upside. That partnership pays off differently depending on which side of the revenue gap you're sitting on. For Lake Hub, it's leverage, but for Atlanta, it's a ceiling that keeps rising while the floor stays exactly the same. With that picture in mind, we need to talk about why the league is expanding so aggressively right now, because it's not just about growth, it's about survival. When the WNBA adds teams like the Valkyries and Golden State, or the new Toronto franchise, they collect expansion fees ranging from $50 million to well over $250 million for premium markets. That injects immediate cash into the league, which helps offset the new payroll obligations for everyone else. Expansion isn't just a business development story, it's a financial pressure valve. The league needs high-revenue franchises in big markets to carry the cost structure that the new CBA created. But here's the twist you didn't see coming. New expansion teams walk in at those massive valuations and immediately face the same $7 million cap floor as everyone else. But they have zero established local revenue. They have no existing sponsor relationships, no loyal season ticket base, and no arena deal already locked in. They are starting from scratch while the meter is already running on mandatory costs. So expansion creates its own version of the trap for first-year owners. Now, the Caitlin Clark piece of this puzzle matters more than most people realize. Her rookie season in 2024 didn't just sell out arenas, it single-handedly accelerated the timeline of the entire media rights negotiation. One player's brand equity moved a $2.2 billion deal faster than the league's own projections ever could. That was the leverage the Players Association used at the bargaining table, and it's exactly why they got a share of gross revenue instead of net. They could point to real, undeniable proof that the product was worth way more than the owners were paying for it. This is what makes the Golden Cage complete. Owners who bought in at $50 or $80 million valuations before Clark arrived are now sitting on $300 million assets they can't easily exit. High valuations make it hard to sell without massive tax exposure, and high mandatory costs make it hard to stay without strong local revenue. Because the revenue share is structured to grow alongside the league, the trap doesn't loosen over time, it actually tightens. Every year the league gets more popular. The cost obligations grow right alongside the upside, and that's a reality every owner has to face. The WNBA's massive $200 million deal did a lot more than just bump up player salaries, because it actually changed how owners look at risk. If you want to build a real career in the sports business world, you need to pay attention to these specific moves. First off, you have to negotiate your revenue share based on the net profit rather than the gross, which is a lesson WNBA owners learned through some very expensive mistakes. You should also connect salary cap growth to local revenue floors instead of just relying on big league-wide media checks, because that's the only way to keep small markets from getting crushed. The Valkyries showed everyone that owning your arena and having a strong sponsor pipeline is worth 10 times more than any expansion fee you might pay. The next time a headline screams about a record-breaking media deal, go find the revenue share clause in the CBA before you celebrate. If you want to see how the NBA's own setup created the blueprint for this entire system, stay tuned because that video is coming up next.